Hello guys, and welcome back to another class of our course about the complete introduction to Java programming. So in today's class we are still going to talk basically about the scanner method, and what I want to talk about today is basically how to work with this method when we have numbers and basically be able to perform different operations related to numbers or even boolean. So you'll see it's pretty much the same thing. So pretty simple. In the past classes, what we talked about is basically performing operations on basically strings. And what we want to do today is basically perform operations on numbers. So pretty simple. All right, so the first thing that I want to do is basically a recap of what we saw in the past class. So basically we are going to write down the code for a string. So basically writing down some lines of code for a string and simply modifying those lines of code in order to work with numbers. So let's do this. All right, so first step as always is importing our method right there. So basically importing the scanner method up there. So you want to import java.util.scanner. And when it's all done, now it's time to basically create our variable where we're going to store our line of code that will be used further. That will be used after that to basically be able to work with our input. So let's start. So as always, what we want to do at first is create our, basically using our scanner. So in this case, as the past time, scanner is used as a data type. Here, let's give it, let's call it scan as always. So it's going to be scan. And what we want to do right now, so here we have our data type, which is scanner, and scan, that will be our basically variable in this case. Now we want to write down new. In this case, we want to have a scanner system.in. Great. So here will be the line of code that we are going to use in order basically to be able to create our program. Next thing that we want to do is basically create a text or a number or a boolean. So the first line of code is always pretty much the same. So next step is basically, in this case, we want to have a string. So since it's a recap, so we're going to redo exactly the same thing. So string. Then we need to create our variable, which will be text. And then what we want to do is simply write down the line of code that will be used in order to, basically write down any text that we want. So scan dot next. Here we go. All right, great. So right now we have everything that we need. So basically right now, what exactly all this does is pretty simple. We saw it in the past class. So basically this is used to be, this line of code, how it works, pretty simple. Here we have our data type. Here we have our variable that is called scan. This is the line of code that is used to ask our user to basically write down something. It could be a string, could be anything that we want. And basically here is what exactly we want our user to write down. So here we want our user to write down a string. So in this case, it will work for a text, it will work for a number, it will work for a boolean. But the only problem is that it will be converted into a string. So if we try it out, so let's say I want to print everything. So system dot out. Whoop, I did a comma right there. Dot print ln, here we go, and I want to print my variable text. So what's gonna happen if I run everything, and let's say instead of writing down a text, I'm writing down a number. So here I want to write 12, for example. So what's gonna happen? It will print 12, but the problem is this 12 is called as a string, and the problem with this is if, for example, I want to do some further operations. It's not necessarily going to work because in this case, this is a string. So I need to reconvert it back to a integer. And basically if I'm writing down true or false, it's going to be strings and not booleans. So how exactly can I work with, let's say in this case, numbers? So I want to work with integers. So pretty simple. First thing that I want to do is basically play on this line of code right here. So this line of code right here tells Java what type of data or what data type will be used inside of this function. And in this case, it's a string. So it's pretty simple. What I want to do is simply modify this data type. So in this case, instead of string, what I can do is simply write down, instead of writing down integer and all other data types, we're just going to work with doubles automatically. So this way we'll have access to all the numbers. So we'll just write down double. So in this case here I have a double, and here the only thing is that I need to modify. So basically scan.next works for strings, but if for example I want to work with doubles or booleans, I need to write down something else. So what exactly I need to write down? So it's pretty simple. It's gonna be next double. So pretty simple. Now if for example I write down 12, it's pretty simple. It's a number. So if I try it out, the application is running. So here I'm writing down 12. So as you can see, it's 12.0. So basically it works pretty fine. Let's say right now I want to write down a text in it. So when I'm writing down the text, you'll see it's going to be a little bit more different. So if I write down text, it returns an error, which makes sense because once again, I'm not working with strings anymore. I'm working with doubles in this case. Now let's say I want to work with booleans. So basically booleans are the true or false value, which will be our third category of data types, of big data types. So in this case, as I said at the beginning, we have text, we have numbers, and we have booleans. So basically true or false. And in this case, if I want to work with this data type, so I can write down string right here. And once again, it will generate me true or false. It's going to work pretty fine. But the only problem is it's only strings. So I can't do nothing with those strings. If I want to have booleans, it's going to be pretty much the same thing. So instead of double, I will need to write down boolean. So here we go. We have it there. And here, instead of scan.next double, I will need to write down something else. So in this case, it's going to be next.boolean. So pretty simple. So right now, what's going to happen is that I will be able to generate true or false. And basically, so here I can write down true. And it works. But if I write down anything else that's true or false, well, I'm gonna have a mistake. So let's say I'm writing down, I don't know, hi, hello. So as you can see, it's a mistake. So when I'm working with booleans, I will only be able to generate true or false. So once again, those are the basics of of asking the user to enter something. So here we didn't ask the user nothing. Basically, it's just showing you the scan method that allows you to basically write down text in the terminal in order to basically, after that, use that text, use that string, or use everything that we have just asked the user in order to perform certain tasks. So that's really the basic of basic. So right now you know how to use the scan method with strings, numbers, and basically right now with booleans. So it's possible to work also with integers right here, but as I said, I prefer to work with doubles because doubles give us access to all the numbers instead of integers that only gives us access to complete numbers. So if you guys will work in the future with huge applications or you create huge applications, maybe in that case you can maybe work with integers, but usually I prefer working with doubles as a data type. So that's it for this class, guys, and see you all in our next class.